Kiwanis Club to talk about Toastmasters and the relationship between Toastmasters and Kiwanis. Something I've been promising to do for a long time was to call Kiwanis and go visit them. But I hadn't done it. Steve set it up. I said I would go with you. So what we're going to do tonight is I wanted to present what we're going to say. This is going to be somewhat lengthy, so I'm going, as Toastmaster, I'm going to keep an eye on the time, and we'll see what we do toward the end of the meeting. So at this point, I'd like to welcome Steve Gunther, and he is going to present his talk that he's giving to Kiwanis tomorrow morning. Thank you, Steve.
Well, I hope this is going to be coherent. I haven't had very much time to practice, and I certainly haven't had time to memorize. I hate memorization. Jerry Seinfeld. See, I couldn't even remember his name. Jerry Seinfeld once said in one of his shows, studies have shown that the American people are more afraid of public speaking than they are of death. Death is number 2. You're better off in the casket than giving the eulogy. Now, why is that? I maintain there's 3 reasons. It's all lack of self-confidence. It's 3 reasons. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of ridicule. All due to a lack of self-confidence. How about you? Could you feel comfortable standing up in front of a group of 5, 10, 20, 50, 200 people and speaking with confidence for 10, 20, 30 minutes on some subject that you probably would know something about? A lot of people wouldn't be able to do that. They'd be quaking in their boots. Now, for anyone that does have that problem, I've got a solution. And the solution is Toastmasters. Yes, Toastmasters. That is the solution. Why do I say that? Well, I'll tell you, because the basic mission of the Toastmasters Club, and I told you I'm terrible at memorization, so I got a cheat sheet. Provide supportive and positive learning experience where members develop communication and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. Now, does that sound scripted? Of course it does. It's right out of the manual. Let me give you a little, it doesn't reduce the truth of it, not one bit. Let me give you a personal story. I remember myself as a young fellow, growing up in Brooklyn, New York, blue-collar family. My father worked in a boiler room shoveling coal as head custodian in New York City school. We'd go around to visit family a lot. And as was common in that day, back in the old days, back in that day, everybody would gather around the big kitchen table for coffee and pastries. Family tradition had it as being coffee and there was family gossip, and there was laughter, and there were stories, and there were kids running all over the place playing, and where was Steve, where was I was under the table, playing with my toy soldiers. Because you see, I was shy. I was so shy I couldn't come out. This kept on as I grew. It affected me in school. I was still able to manage to keep a good B plus average all the way. But I didn't stand out. And then one day in 9th grade, my algebra teacher asked me a question. I couldn't answer that question. I just sat there. There I was sitting there. There he was standing next to me. He was bald. He could have been Jack Benny. You remember Jack Benny? The look? There he was. And then came the laughter from the class students. What little confidence, what little self-confidence I had in any classroom, boom, was gone. 5 minutes, totally destroyed. After that, whenever there was a choice, where was I sitting? In the back of the room. Did I ever raise my hand? No. Well, I made it through school. We fast forward a few years. And during my career in the Air Force, I had to go through 2 non-commissioned officer academy schools. They were 6-week schools. And as part of the training there, you had to stand up in front of your seminar and give a speech. I don't remember how long the speech was supposed to be. I don't remember what the speech was about. All I know is I managed to do it twice and get back to my seat without needing CPR. That's all I can tell you. Well, early on, I did manage to get a college degree, and as part of that, I took 2 credit course class, speech. I got through that course, and I gave, 5-10 speeches. Can I tell you what they were about? No. Again, I made it without CPR. But none of that helped. Now, let's fast forward again, 20, 25 years. I retired from the Air Force, and here I am working in Columbus, Ohio, software outfit up in Dublin on Metro Place North. Then they came to me and said, Steve, it's been nice knowing you. Goodbye. I was out. You see, legacy programming wasn't as good as new and improved stuff. That's what all these kids coming out of college knew that I didn't. Sorry, Mike, I don't meet you. You see, they knew it and I didn't. Of course, they were getting a heck of a lot less base pay than I was getting, but I don't think that had anything to do with it, do you? No, of course not. So, I was out looking for a job. And I went to interviews here and interviews there. And a friend of mine that had just gotten out of the company, gone to work for another company, I interviewed there, but I didn't get the job. And he told me later on that the reason I didn't get that job was because I came across as timid and insincere and uncertain in the interview. Well, I'll tell you right now, I decided that wasn't going to happen again. So how? Well, let me try this Toastmasters thing out. That was 10 years ago. Since then, I've given over 50 speeches. I've been in half a dozen or more local speech competitions. Do I look nervous? I may feel nervous, but I don't look nervous because I've got those butterflies in line. So there you go. That's Toastmasters. Okay, how did it help me? How did it help me? I joined hoping that it would help me in the interview process and help me find a job. Well, it didn't. Helped me find 3 jobs, all within a year. From this one, I didn't like this one. I went to that one, they didn't like me. Then I went to the one that I finally wound up retiring from 2 years ago. Why? Because I excelled in the interviews. That second job, they might have said I pulled the wool over their eyes, but what the heck. And I didn't learn a thing about interviewing skills from Toastmasters. It was all about confidence, self-confidence, and being able to, what was the phrase? Greater self-confidence and personal growth. Now, where have we heard that just a little while ago? The club mission. So that's the club mission. Well, how about Toastmasters International itself? You see, here's my cheat sheet again. Well, they've got a mission, and their mission is to empower individuals to become more effective communicators and leaders. You know, the motto of Toastmasters is where leaders are made. And why is that? That's because leaders are made there. So let's think about this. Think about what is leadership. When you're a leader, you convince people to do things, to think things, to say things in certain ways. It's influence. And how do you influence people? By communicating. And how do you learn to communicate? Well, one way is the Toastmasters way. All right. Let's think of some great communicators. How about Ronald Reagan? What do they call him? They called him the great communicator. You want to look at some other great communicators through history? Let's look at Winston Churchill. Let's look at Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, John Kennedy. All right, then you've got the dark side. The dark side. You've got the Lenins, the Hitlers, the Mussolinis. How do they all do it? They convinced people, they communicated, they talked, they gestured, they got across. Great communicators, every one of them. Where leaders are made. So I changed, and I did that. Well, now how does Toastmasters do that? Toastmasters does that through a two-track system. On the one hand, there is the speaking path, or the speech path, if you will. On the other hand, there's a leadership path. Well, the speaking path, or the communication path, if you will, starts out with 10 speeches. Every new Toastmaster gets a set of manuals, and they give 10 speeches to begin with. These are all predefined, pre-designed. They teach the Toastmaster how to introduce themselves with the icebreaker speech. Then other things they learn are gestures, vocal variety. That's where you talk nice and quiet sometimes, and then other times you raise your voice and get attention. I said gestures, that includes facial expressions. That includes stance, how you stand. And how you stand can actually give you greater confidence in what you're saying and doing. It even goes down to teaching you how to listen. But then that listening part is on the other side. That's the leadership part. In the leadership part, you learn how to be a leader through running meetings, taking roles in meetings. You're the Toastmaster, you evaluate, you give speeches, you time. And when you evaluate, you have to listen. You have to listen to what the speaker is saying and take notes and give your opinions in these already created manuals that help guide the speaker on his or her course. It's all participatory learning. We used to call that on-the-job training in the Air Force. That was OJT. I'm sure Jonathan remembers that term, OJT. And that's how they do it. All right, so that's how Toastmasters can help it happen. But that's not all. Even after you finish those first 10 speeches and that first leadership manual, you can go on to other speeches. There are specialized speeches. There are manuals that you can take that lead you through technical presentations. There are manuals you can take that will lead you through oratorical speaking, poetry reading, all sorts of things. And you just move on up and up and up. Now, how can this affect people? Well, I can give you 3 examples. There are some famous people. I'll just give you 1 famous people and 2 not so famous. All right. Ever hear of Chris Matthews?
Yes.
He was terrified of public speaking when he started out in the 70s. Terrified. He was a member of the Capitol Hill Toastmasters Club for a year. And he gives great credit to Toastmasters for helping him get where he is today. Chris Matthews. I hate watching his show because he never lets the other person say anything. But he learned something. All right, here's another one. Here we go. Here's another one. Did I ever tell you I have a problem remembering things? We're talking about Jamie French. I know Jamie. I met him about 5-6 years ago. At one point, his wife came down with a terrible staph infection that nearly cost her her life and did cost her 2 legs. He managed to make it through. They gave her up for dead. She was going to die. He credits what he learned in Toastmasters with being able to take control of all those doctors that had this way and that way and the other way and this way and this test and that test. A million ways to go. And he credits what he learned with Toastmasters, now I don't know if he's really right or not, but he certainly thinks he is, with being able to manage that and help to save a life. And so, then we also have Darren LaCroix, the 2001 winner of the Toastmasters World Champion of Public Speaking contest. He competed with 25,000 others and won the title. He has gone on to be a wonderful speaker, consultant. Jamie French is a speaker and consultant and trainer now. He travels all around the country. But Darren LaCroix, he travels around the world. He has over 350 videos on YouTube that you can watch that will tell you about Toastmasters and how to do it. When he started out, he owned and ran a Subway franchise and turned a $60,000 debt into twice that amount in 6 months. Then he decided he wanted to be a comedian and got that way through Toastmasters, and now he's a great public speaker making lots of money. So there you go. It can be done. So how does Toastmasters do it other than that? How is it organized? Well, it's a very hierarchical institution. You have your basic club. Your basic club has anywhere from 10 to 20, 25 members. The typical club has 20 members. And you take 6 clubs, 7 clubs, 4 clubs, and you organize them into an area. And you take those areas, 4, 5 areas, 6 areas, and you organize them into a division. And 4, 5, or 6 divisions make up a district. And there's something like 19 districts around the world now, all coming under the tutelage of Toastmasters International in California. And they started out there in California, in Santa Ana, 1926, Ralph C. Smedley. Can you imagine a name like Ralph C. Smedley? Hi, I'm Ralph C. Smedley. But he started Toastmasters in Santa Ana. He was the education director for the local YMCA. And he knew that the young men, this was back in 1926, in his community needed to learn better communication skills. And so he started Toastmasters. And why did he call it Toastmasters? Because he wanted to lure them in, right? What was a Toastmaster? Somebody that was at a fancy dinner that raised toasts, and, because I've had people say, well, what's Toastmasters? They go like that. They raised toasts and they introduced speakers. So that's how he got them in. And they grew. In 1932, Toastmasters went international. And now, there are more than 300, again, I have to look for the numbers, there are more than 313,000 members in over 14,600 clubs in over 126 countries around the world, where leaders are made. Clearly, with numbers like that, you have to admit, anyone would have to admit, mission accomplished. So that's all I have to say about Toastmasters. And now I'm going to introduce Jonathan, who is going to tell you a little bit more about Toastmasters from his perspective. Jonathan, our preacher in residence. Jonathan.
Steve's talked to you a lot about mission this morning. And if I asked you, what is the mission of Kiwanis, what would you say? For several years, I was a member of the Mo-Ark District, District 14 of Kiwanis. I was co-director of spiritual values for a little while, and my daughter was a member of Key Club when she was in high school. And it was difficult to explain to my wife how important it was to go to a Kiwanis meeting after I told her that supposedly the word Kiwanis was based on a Native American term that meant we have fun and we make a lot of noise. Well, the word Kiwanis has pretty much stuck throughout the history of the organization, but its mission has changed some. It started out as a group of businessmen networking together, and then finally, after a very brief time of rapid growth, they decided their real focus would be on community service, particularly to the families and children of their area, with the motto, "We build." Now, if you look on the Kiwanis website, it says that service is at the heart of every Kiwanis International Club. And certainly I was proud of the work we did when I was a member of the Sykeston, the Springfield South, and the Excelsior Springs, Missouri Kiwanis clubs. Kiwanis reaches out to young people through K-Kids, Builders Clubs, the Key Clubs at the high school level, and even Circle K organizations at the college level. The point at every level is reaching out to youth and developing leadership among the youth of the community. Well, in addition to what Steve said about Toastmasters, I'd like to say that Toastmasters shares Kiwanis' mission to youth. We have a couple of programs that are particularly designed for youth. One is called Interpersonal Communications. One is called the Youth Leadership Program. They can be used within and outside of schools. They parallel the adult plan, except they are short-term commitments. And they encourage young people to develop public speaking skills as well as leadership abilities. In the short history of our club, we have not sponsored any of those things, although there has been some interest shown, and perhaps we could do that in the near future. But I want to encourage your members to consider becoming Toastmasters. In the short time that I have been a Toastmaster, I have been amazed how some people have come to our group just sure that they were unable to stand before an audience. In fact, some had had terrible experiences with public speaking. And in a very short time, they developed public speaking skills, the kind of confidence that Steve talked about. Some of us are natural born speakers. I've never had a problem getting up in front of people and speaking, at least if I were prepared. I never had a problem getting up and speaking in front of people. And for us, Toastmasters is helpful because it helps us organize a little better. There are time limits, and there's helpful critique from our peers. I said it's so much like the high school and college speech classes that I enjoyed in a previous decade. It is possible for you to begin another club, but I'd like to encourage you to join our Toastmasters to give us a chance. Steve and I are hardly representative of the membership of the group. It's not just for white old guys. In fact, we're a very diverse group in terms of race and age and gender and professional interests. In fact, I would say that our last several new members who joined just this summer are young enough to be my sons and daughters. So Toastmasters has a lot in common with Kiwanis and their mission to young people and developing youth leadership. One thing I can say is that like Kiwanis, but maybe even more than Kiwanis, Toastmasters have fun and like to make a lot of noise. Thank you very much.